Hey you guys, it's your girl T, and I want to go ahead and shout out Andrea Isaac. Andrea Isaac sent me this disturbing story on Facebook, and I've been following up with it. And she wrote on my Facebook page, she was like, being black in America means nothing anymore. And this story is very, very sad. It's about a 28-year-old man named Alfred Wright. He's from Trifling, Texas. So what's going on in Trifling, Texas is that basically this man went missing back November 7th. So what happened is that he was having some type of mechanical problem with his truck. He had called his wife to let them know that he needed a ride. And so the wife had reached out to his father and other family members, and she called back to let him know that they were going to be on their way to come get him. And she said when she called him, she heard all this muffling sound. She was like, he wasn't saying anything. She heard folks in the background. She didn't know what was going on. By the time the family members got to him and his truck were both missing. So this case is just really sad. It took several weeks, but eventually 25 members of the search party, which was made up of their family members, because after a few weeks, the police department, they stopped searching for this young man. Well, his family members and his friends ended up finding his body. And when they found his body, he was stripped down to his boxer shorts. His cell phone was tucked into his sock. They're saying that there was a cut across his neck, and his ear was also chopped off. So after all this was revealed, the medical examiner, John Ralston, he declared that this man died of, a drug overdose. Said he had a bunch of meth and other things in his system. And his family members are like, you know what? He worked in physical therapy. He worked around patients. He was not a drug user. He's never been in trouble before. This is nothing like him. And then when they went to go ask him about, okay, well, fine, why is his ear cut off? Why is his neck slashed? They were trying to say that it was attributed to him being out in the wild, and that it was probably wild animals who did it. So this story is now causing national outrage. Folks have started up petitions on We the People and change.org. So a lot of folks are really mad. They even started a hashtag called Justice for Alfred Wright. So everybody's talking about this. Now the feds are getting involved. They're going to go do a deeper examination, because if you guys don't know, back in 1998, there was an issue where a black man was drugged by his truck in Jasper, Texas. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and play you guys a news clip, and I will come back with the rest of my commentary.
Death of a man in Jasper.
Federal authorities have just taken over this investigation of Alfred Wright's death.
That is because his family says state and local authorities are sweeping it under the rug.
Our Rux Russell has the story of another high-profile death in the small town of Jasper.
To know him was to love him.
Alfred Wright was a husband, a father, and a son.
You would have had to know him to know his character, his personality.
He and I were actually in the second grade together.
Lauren Wright had no way of knowing back then that the two would one day marry. But what no one could anticipate were the events that would eventually thrust Wright, his family, and the small city of Jasper into the national spotlight.
I believe he was murdered, and only God from heaven would have to come down and tell me that he wasn't murdered.
The accounts of what took place last November have been well documented. Wright, a physical therapist, was on his way to treat a patient when his truck broke down near this convenience store, and he called his wife for help.
He was having truck problems, and that someone probably needed to go ahead and come get him.
He was waiting on us to pick him up.
But within minutes, Wright's wife called him back.
And that's when I heard the heavy breathing, the respiratory, what I call respiratory distress of some kind. It was just very heavy breathing, and I just sensed the urgency immediately that something wasn't right.
When Wright's parents showed up, they only saw his parked truck, but the 28-year-old was missing. The Sabine County Sheriff's Office conducted a search. After 4 days, it was called off. The family questions how hard deputies looked. But those closest to Wright continued to comb through the nearby woods for the next 2.5 weeks. Wright's friends and family members located his body on a day not too unlike this. It was cold and wet. The body found lying face down in some thick woods about 1.5 miles from where I'm standing. An initial official autopsy ordered by the county attributed the death to lethal amounts of meth, cocaine, and amphetamines found in his system. But the family sent the remains to Houston for a second autopsy, which found the body was missing an ear, the tongue, and had a throat that appeared to have been slashed. And they insist Wright would never have abused drugs.
I know my husband was killed by somebody.
No question in your mind?
No question in my mind.
No question, some say, in part because of what happened here before. In 1998, when 3 white men in a pickup truck dragged a black man to his death.
We found the body. Sheriff had never asked us any questions. Texas Rangers hadn't asked us any questions. We found the body.
I think we all question the motives, definitely. You know, do they know something that we don't know? Are they trying to cover it up for someone? I mean, we don't know.
This week, the U.S. Justice Department moved to take over the investigation. Calls to the sheriff and the Texas Rangers office were not returned.
None of us will stop until we find out who did it and why they did it, and see that justice is served.
In Jasper, Rux Russell, KHOU.
Okay, so you guys just watched the news clip, and like I said, this whole story is very disturbing. You know, this is a loving couple. They've been together. They've been knowing each other since 2nd grade. You know, they have several children together. This man was a husband. He was a father. He was a son, well-liked. So this is just really sad. I hope this family ends up finding the peace that they deserve. I'm happy that the feds are getting involved. To me, the medical examiner's office and the way that this case was treated was definitely due to racism. You know, why did the police call out the search so soon? You know, if it wasn't for his family and his friends being persistent and still going out there and searching, this man's body may have never been found. You know, so this whole situation is just really, really tragic. This, to me, is true racism. You know, when you're just so quick to just call him a drug user and say that he overdosed, as opposed to trying to find out the real reason why this young man died. I also think that medical examiner's office needs to also be investigated and make sure, you know, how did he come up to this conclusion? Make sure that they didn't put some type of drugs or chemicals in his system. You know, this whole situation is just shady and crazy. This is something that we all need to rally against, because this could happen to any of us. This, to me, is something that is definitely suspicious. This situation is something that black folks should definitely be rallying for, and, you know, making sure that this man gets proper treatment, because this could have been anybody out there who was hurt and killed. There's a lot of people out here who are just extremely racist. They don't care for people of color. You know, they might have even felt some type of way. It might have been somebody who may have knew him, who may have known he was in an interracial relationship and felt some type of way. You know, you have a lot of folks out here who are so mad that America is now turning into this interracial melting pot. So you have a lot of these nutcases running around as well. So I think that they do need to do a really deep investigation and find out what happened to poor Alfred. Nobody deserves to get their life taken in such a manner. So anyways, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this entire situation. Do you believe that it's foul play? And how do you feel about the feds getting involved in it now? So let me know your thoughts. All right. Deuces.